Guys, welcome to the Desi Bowlers podcast. This is episode 7. I'm Nikhil. With me is Gopal. Hey, Gopal, what's up?
Hey, what's up, man? Excited for this one.
We had some crazy playing games today. We have two guests for you today. So, guys, stay tuned as we get started. So, let's start first with Gopal. Whom have you invited today?
The first guest is a very special and unique guest because of the basketball culture that he represents. So we have the winner of the Mizoram Super League team, Thazuwala, who will be joining us.
Okay.
And yeah, we're excited to have him. So if he's already joined us, then maybe we can bring him on.
He's yet to join, but who's the next guest after this?
Oh, okay. Awesome. So we're going to do both the guests. So the next guest also is going to be a very, very unique story. We are talking about India's first, like India's Jerry Maguire. I think we never talk about, even though previous guests talk about searching for an agent and stuff. So Jonathan Rego, he's India's first FIBA certified player agent, right? So these are the two guests that we have lined up. Apart from that, of course, Nikhil, so much NBA action, right? The playing games this morning.
Oh, absolutely. I woke up and I just rushed to my TV, and thankfully, Geo Cinemas was streaming the playing games. So, which is a surprise because Geo Cinemas rarely, you end up getting good games. It's very strange the way they pick the schedule. Like
Huh.
they play such weird games which no one wants to watch. But fortunately, they were playing the playing games.
Hmm.
So let's discuss the first game, which was the Hawks and the Heat. Now, Gopal, did you check out this game?
Hey man, it was an amazing game. It was. Are we doing spoilers? We are doing spoilers, right? Like
Of
people would have
course.
watched it by now, right? We can't analyze
Come
it.
on, if you have not watched it till now, you don't tune in, guys. Come on.
Okay, so yeah, it was an upset, and it was not just an upset, man. They were like Hawks were in control, like they were dominant from pretty much beginning to end. The heat culture, so-called heat culture that we diss or we praise depending on where we stand here.
Right.
It was the energy was missing. It was really strange that the Hawks go to Miami and win quite comfortably. So yeah, I watched the game. I was not expecting this result. And if you're like me, if you start tuning into all these games, you expect Miami to play the way they are touted to play, right? But we didn't get to see that. There was only one person, Nikhil, who showed the energy. I think you know who I'm talking about. The aged, grizzled veteran, Kyle Lowry.
So, see, that actually stems with the problem that I feel
Hmm.
Heat has just become too old, and they didn't play a
Hmm.
lot of the young players. And look, in the course of the entire game, and this is a very rarely anyone will say something about the Heat, but I felt that they got out muscled. Rarely will you hear anyone say this about the Heat. Literally, Hawks beat them up, like got so many offensive rebounds, particularly Clint
Capella.
Capella
Hmm.
and Jason Collins, both of them, like they were hitting the glass hard. You rarely hear Heat getting out muscled by anyone. And let's talk about the star. Although he didn't have a great game on paper, but he set the
Hmm.
right tone, is Trey Young. So
Yeah.
Trey Young, I think, treated this playing game personally. Like from the get, although he was just 1 of 8 from three, he was attacking them. He's a tiny guy, and he was taking, he was very physical. He was driving to the basket hard, getting a lot of kick-ins, creating a lot of
Hockey assists,
opportunities.
as they call it.
Yeah, hockey assists, and I think he took it personally. Like starting off before the game started, there were trade rumors about him that his GM has got approval to trade him.
Yeah, isn't that like a generic approval? Like, agar aapko trade karna hai, it's an open thing. Anyone can be traded. It was not. They clarified. No, they apparently they called him up before the game, and they
Right.
told him it's not like something specific to you. I think that was the clarification that happened before the
No,
game.
but look, in my opinion, Trey Young, he's a young guy. He should be one of those people who, like, why the hell would you trade him? Like, you've already won, the sort of the lottery, if you may, that you've got a good star. And the issue is they have not built a great team around him. He is not the issue, if you ask me. And I don't know, like this was a very strange trade. But Trey Young, he had two animosities, you could say. The first one was his team was looking at trading him. He's their
Yeah.
franchise player.
Huh.
And the second was last year, Heat embarrassed him in a gentleman's
Mm.
sweep. Trey Young couldn't get going. He was, beat up. He could not even get the ball in a lot of possessions. He was doubled the moment he came into the court. He was forced into a lot of turnovers. And I think Trey Young is the type of player where how you have Steph Curry, who
Yeah.
learned how to play with that kind of pressure. He's still in that process, and I
Mm.
think it's way too early to, like. Why the hell would you trade this guy? I just, it just doesn't make sense to me. Like,
No,
what
so
do you?
what was the reasoning? Like there must have been some. Apparently, his leadership was not on point. What was that's what we were hearing,
This,
right?
this the thing is, I don't understand, dude. The guy's averaging like 28 and 8, like
हाँ.
28.8 assists.
नहीं इस साल
He
नहीं
can
ना
lead.
इस साल वो कम है. I think it's he's around 21, 22 if I'm not mistaken. I think
No,
this
no,
year.
no.
He's
He's pretty good this
oh
year also. He's the league
hmm.
leader in assists for the last
Okay.
3 years. It's like,
Hmm.
why the hell would you trade this guy? It makes absolute no sense. I mean, if you had to think about it, Gopal, like, do you think this makes sense to
It
trade
does
him?
no. That's why I was shocked to read it, and especially considering. So this is what makes it interesting, right? So what they got Dejounte Murray, right? Like who's supposed to take the pressure off him, specifically in the context of playing against Miami, right? So are they saying that they're going to replace like a like for like replacement because you would want them to play together? Going by today's game, also they were sharing the ball well.
Absolutely. So one of the best parts about today's game
Hmm.
was you could really feel that their ability to have two players who could consistently get to the rim, break
Yeah.
down their opponent. Dejounte Murray, I think, is a underrated ad, and
Yeah.
I think right now they're still learning Quinn Snyder's system, the Utah Jazz former Utah Jazz coach.
Yeah.
I They're facing the Boston Celtics. I doubt they'll be able to beat the Boston Celtics,
This is a
but
jhadu. This is a jhadu. This is
no, no, no. But I'm telling you, watch out for them because they have proven to upset strong teams. 2 years ago, they beat up Philadelphia 76ers, who at that time were the title favorites to get out of the East.
hmm.
And I don't think they'll be able to upset Boston Celtics. I think Celtics have gone through a lot of stuff already, but it will be a very interesting series just because the fact that they have two legit players who can get their shot anytime. You have Trey Young, you have Dejounte Murray, and they showed it today. And Heat, although they felt like, Hawks were the more physical team, they were more motivated, whatever you want to call it. Heat is still a tough defensive team, and Heat was made look like they're non-existent. Like, you're looking at some of the highlights here, it's crazy. And I
No, no.
mean,
So so there are two things here, obviously, right? The stuff that Hawks did right, okay, which was crashing the boards and Clint Capella, like I feel like he was. It's crazy. What are the numbers? 22 rebounds, some weird
yeah,
like
he
outlandish.
had 4 points and 22 rebounds.
Yeah. So my issue is,
Out of that,
obviously,
I think 8 or 9 offensive rebounds. Sorry, but yeah,
exactly. No, you're right. So my point is, it's equally about because obviously we'll come to the other game, right? We'll come to the Lakers game also. But if you look at
right,
the two games are so different, right, in the way that the teams approached it. So you look at the Heat, right? The energy was completely lacking. A lot of these stats that we talk about where the Hawks dominated, I think second chance points also rebounds, right? These are
right,
all, a lot of this comes down to energy and effort, right?
right,
So my and what happened to Bam? Like he was though snoozing, man. Like especially the first, and you could see the difference, right? I think late in the second quarter, the moment he picked up his defense, he got a few blocks, and then they start going on this push, right? And it looked like a completely different team. And Jimmy Butler, again, I've always never, I'm confused about Jimmy Butler, right? He's a confusing guy because I understand all the tangibles and intangibles he brings, but then
right,
there are these moments where it's so obvious that he should take over in terms of scoring, but
yep,
then he differs, and then it puts his teammates in this awkward like 2 seconds or 3 seconds left on the shot clock, and they were not
right,
expecting the ball anyway. This
right,
has always been a problem. He has improved though. He balances the sort of facilitator versus aggressor role quite
right.
well. But yeah, but yeah, all in all, I mean, Miami Heat really, I mean, it was, man, we expect better from them, right? Crazy.
Yeah, I think they'll bounce back. I mean, I don't think Heat are going anywhere. They're gonna give the Bucks a good series, I'm sure, if they win their next
Oh,
round.
oh, is that a prediction? Are you predicting?
No, 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 no. Dude, Bucks are legit, dude. I mean, I hope
No, no, you're
it's.
predicting Heat will win the next game, no?
Yeah. Come on, man. I mean, no chance they lose this again. So while we'll discuss the next NBA game, guys, our guest has joined
Awesome.
us. So let's invite Tazwala. Hey, Tazwala, what's up? How are you? Super to have you here.
Hey, bro, how's it going?
So, Tazwala, you'll have to unmute yourself. You're muted.
Nikhil, are you seeing his T-shirt?
I didn't.
Am I
I didn't.
audible?
Oh
You
wow.
we love your T-shirt,
Hello,
bro.
guys.
Like this is. Oh man, see this is why I love Mizoram, dude. They do it right. Okay, they do
Okay.
it right. Hey, congrats, Thazola, congrats, man. You're like MSL champs, Nikhil. They won it after a gap of 5 years. Khatra TBL, right? I think you was it 5 years the
Six
last time
years.
you won? 6 years.
6 years.
So how
Yes.
Wow.
how how crazy is it, man? Like what is happening? How are the celebrations? Like the last week or 2 weeks? What's been up with you?
The celebration was it last like two weeks, more than 1 week. Yeah, more than like that. We celebrate a lot. And the owners, they all are really happy. I'm proud of our team. Everyone is happy after being being losing in the finals for like 3 4 years. Winning this championship, it really means a lot.
Yeah. So what was different, right? So obviously now Nikhil, okay, my colleague and my co-host here, like for someone like him, okay, who is hearing about Mizoram Super League for the first time, can you just take us through the sort of vibe and the culture? Like how crazy did the fans get? What is Mizoram Super League? Can you just like introduce us to the league?
Okay. Basketball was like the popular sports for like the past 7 8 years, and after the birth of MSL in 2015, people are really into basketball. They all love basketball. All the kids, the youngsters. So, and then this is the eighth season. So we've seen a lot of growing in the league. Interstate players are coming. We can have two interstate players and no, total three interstate players, one from foreign and one from the states. So and last year the league was like played for 8 teams.
Okay.
So now we have altogether 8 teams are playing the MSL.
But what was different about your team this time, right? Because you faced Zarkot. I mean, last four finals or something, right? So, but what was different? How were you able to go over the final barrier this time? What is different about your team?
Okay, I'm talking about my career.
Yeah.
My first MSL was in MSL 3.
Okay.
I was 18 at that time. I played for Holo.
Yeah.
And after that, I joined TBL in MSL 4. And that year, I was not here. I was not with my teammates for practice because of my studies. And I flew home to play the semifinals, only the semifinals. And
Okay.
then we lost. And then 5 and 6, I was not there. I was not playing MSL
Yeah.
because of my studies again. And MSL 7 last year, I was called for the camp. I was not with my teammates for practice.
Yeah.
So, and then we lost. And then this year is like my first season, playing full time, practicing with my teammates, and I'm happy that we win.
Okay. I think you have something that you want to show us, right? Can you go ahead and show us, or we can see it?
It's here.
Yeah. Yes,
Wow.
sir. Yes, that's what's up, man.
That's great.
Oh man, I think this is as good as the NBA trophy, dude. I like
Yeah, looks beautiful. I had no
beautiful.
idea
I love
we
this.
had a league like this, man. Intense, crazy.
Yeah, Nikhil, go ahead, man. I'm sure you're very curious about this league and everything about it.
So, I mean, tell me a bit more about MSL. Just to give you some context, I just found out that I think two 4 days back that India had a lot of professional leagues. I'm an avid follower of the NBA, and Gopal has been introducing me to a lot of players, professional players like yourself. So tell me a bit more about the league. Tell me a bit more about how the culture is. Tell me a bit more about how much time you end up spending on playing and working on your game. Can you give me like a summary?
Okay. So MSL is like 2 weeks, 2 months 2 months in total. There's a league round. There's a league round for there's a 2 round league. So
Okay.
we'll be playing against each other for 2 rounds, and we have the semifinals, and then semifinals is for game three, best of
Okay.
three, and then finals also get best of three.
Okay.
And about the culture is we usually follows NBA rules. Like
Okay.
last year,
Okay.
like there was no defensive 3 seconds,
Okay.
but from this year we started using the FIBA rules,
Wow.
and I
Okay.
think like it really helps a lot. Playing nationals, we are using the FIBA rules in the nationals, so there's a little bit of problems in our defensive game or
Okay.
maybe offensive game. So
Wow.
um, yeah, we started using that rules, FIBA rules, and um, the culture is like we love to watch NBA. All the Mizo people love to watch NBA and learn their moves, play
Right.
their like play. We would like to play like them. So when you go to the court, every kids are like trying to shoot like Steph Curry or maybe like Kobe Bryant, wearing NBA jerseys and kicks.
Right. That's pretty cool,
So
man.
that's
And
how
you particularly, what position do you play? Can I get some context? Who's your
I'm
favorite
playing
player?
point guard.
Okay. And who's your
I
favorite?
don't have that specific favorite player. Kobe Bryant will be my number one for
Okay.
sure, and Devin Booker, Steph Curry, Damian Lillard. I learned all their moves, and just I'm just trying to use them whenever I can, depending upon the situations.
Right.
Awesome. Hey, Nikhil, you have to ask. Now you have to ask that question, your favorite question. You have to ask that.
So that's all something which I wonder a lot about, and I tell Gopal that look, if basketball has to grow in India, it has to be followed by money. So if you're comfortable sharing,
Oh,
like how much
wait,
is
hold up, man.
yeah.
Not sorry, your second favorite question, the one about range.
Oh, right. I'm sorry. So Tazwala, another question. So of course you told Steph Curry is your favorite player. So few years back I would ask people, could you dunk? But now I ask people, how far away from the 3 point line can you shoot consistently?
Ah, maybe from the half court I can shoot.
Wow.
Consistently. Like you can.
Consistently, like at
Not
a 40%,
consistently.
50% clip.
I I think I'm like 30%.
Wow.
That's pretty good,
That's
man.
good, man.
Yeah, that's
Do
crazy.
your coaches allow you to take these long range bombers, or would you get substituted? Like how is like the playing style there? Are you allowed to take threes whenever you want?
No, it depends on my mood or like how I feel.
Okay.
Whenever I feel like taking some shots, I just shoot the ball, just that. But like if I don't make that, that's a bad choice, right?
Right, right, right.
Taking an early shot or like long threes. So
Oh,
it depends on if I'm hot or if I feel it, I just shoot it.
I
There's
love
no
it, man.
problem with that.
It's a vibe. And there's one more thing that I wanted to just highlight. One thing, Nikhil, about the Mizoram Super League, okay, which goes under the radar, and now people are really noticing it across India that this is a kick-ass league, and they
Right,
actually have TVS as their title sponsor. I mean, they're getting a lot of sponsorship and they're getting a lot of visibility. But
right,
one thing, Nikhil and others who are tuning in who may not be familiar with MSL is that every team always has like an American import player. Like they have someone they fly down from the US, or professional athletes, right? Who play
right.
the center position. And Tazwala, Mizoram always has this height problem, right? Is that the reason why you always every team has one or two of foreign players? Can you take us through like the team, how it is constituted?
Okay, so we all are like short players. I mean, not we don't have big
How
players
tall are
there.
you, man? How tall are you? You must be like 5'10", right?
5'11", almost
Okay.
six. Like we shoot six.
That's pretty good, man. I mean, for a point guard, that's CP3
Yeah.
size. How's that?
And yeah, our we don't have big players here,
Okay,
so the the MSL allows us to take some foreign players, one foreign players and two interstate players.
right.
So we just aim for the big guy. Taking guards is also cool, but we want somebody who can, foster, do everything, handle the ball, everything, who can do everything. And
Crazy, crazy.
even for the Indian players, we usually prefer big guys.
Okay.
Makes
So,
sense.
so I have another question. Like, who was the MVP of the finals?
Joshua Keys,
Okay, okay,
Joshua
and
he
Keys.
was,
So he's that
yeah,
he's the American guy on the team, right?
okay,
yeah, he's from Cleveland.
Oh,
okay.
you got a Cleveland guy. Hey, but so what? How do these guys react, man? Like for them, like coming all the way from the US, how do they feel welcome? Do they feel like, oh man, what? Like I never thought of coming to Mizoram. Like, have you spoken to Joshua? Like, what is their feedback like? Do they explore Mizoram as a state? Do they travel around? Like, what is the team chemistry like, especially with these foreign players?
Bro, they really love Mizoram staying here. All the fans love him. They're like a big celebrity. Everyone loves him, and they love the food, the culture. But for some Americans, it can be different. But for my teammates,
Yeah.
we've been staying together every day, talking about
Right.
our game, how to work on our game. Like he's a good friend, a mentor as well.
Hmm.
It's
So
very
I
cool,
learned
man.
a lot from him. He's really cool. But for some Americans, it might be hard, being able to adjust with the food and everything.
I so sorry to barge in with a very random question, but Gopal, of all the leagues you've shown me till now, the
Hmm.
Indian leagues,
Hmm.
I don't think I've seen them have such a court with a crowd as big
Crowd.
as
Yes.
massive as this. This is
Yes.
amazing. Like this is what I want to see, man. I want to see a massive crowd.
No,
I'm
I'll
sure
tell you.
the
I'll tell you
feel
this.
in the turn like in the match must have been great. I mean, that's what I'm like. Can you
Yeah,
share some thoughts on this entire crowd? Because I have seen so many leagues which Gopal has shown me, and typically the stadiums are empty. But over
yeah.
here, it's jam packed. Like I can see some people sitting on floor.
Like in the league rounds, it was not fully packed like this.
Okay,
But from the semifinals, we usually start our warm-ups around 7, and the game starts at 8.
okay,
And at the time of 7, it was like totally packed.
wow. And how
People
does
want
it
to sit
feel?
near the court side, and people want to get good seats. So
Wow.
they
How
they
was the
all came
feel for
early
you?
to
Like
work.
looking at so many people watching you play.
It's really cool. It's amazing. I can't express my feelings. Like really
Yeah.
fun.
I'm 100% sure that Tazawala probably got a lot of DMs from pretty girls after the match.
Who slid in your DMs, bro? Tazola, come on, like give us the download on your fan
Oh, I
fan
can't say
following.
here. I can't say here.
Oh, can't
I
say.
can't say here. Maybe I'll tell you later.
That's pretty cool, man. It's
No,
really cool.
but do you remember like a crazy fan moment after you guys won? Do you remember like how did the because see one thing that I know that every team has a very strong local community following. So can you just tell us like
Yeah.
Khatla like what is Khatla? Is that a place near Aizawl? Is it part of Aizawl? Can you just take us like about your team, how it is formed?
This
Yeah,
was you
it's a
who made
part of
the play. I'm sorry.
Aizawl.
I'm sorry. Sorry to ask you. Was that you who just made that play?
Yeah, that's him.
Yeah.
The Hezi pull up Jimbo. Yeah. Sorry. Please go ahead.
It's one of the big areas in Aizawl here.
Okay. Okay.
So the fans are really supportive. The families, the PBL families, they all are, really into basketball. And the fans are crazy. Every time, every game, they'll come up cheer with all the drums.
Wow.
And
Wow. Wow. Wow.
after the game, all the kids would come to us, to hug us, maybe shake hands like that. So I really miss that feeling.
Awesome.
That's
Awesome.
pretty cool, man. So, any basketball players out there, if you like crowds, if you like fan followings, I mean, do check out the Mizoram Super League. So, my next question, Tazwala, is can you tell me, how the NBA culture has influenced
Yeah.
your play and overall Mizoram basketball and Mizoram Super League?
Or as I've said, um, we all are really watching about NBA a lot, especially for even for those who don't play that much like us, and we want to play like the NBA styles, maybe some fancy moves.
Right.
And as I've said, all the kids are doing some crazy moves like Steph Curry, or maybe as I've said, wearing their jerseys, and then they'll be playing good moves. Their skills are improving, the
That's
kids.
pretty cool.
But I want to add, like, what I tell my friends and the kids is that the next step is the Indian basketball, right? I mean, so we gotta learn how to play together as a team. Properly organized manner,
Right.
Okay. No, no,
less
that's
less isolation game.
yeah.
Right.
As a team. So that's what I've experienced.
No, that's a good point, Tazwal. I'm glad you brought that up because that was my. I'm sure Nikhil may have another question on Mizoram, but I want to also now shift our focus a bit because you played in the INBL also, right? I think you were part of that the Kochi Tigers
Tigers.
team, right? So this is something I always want to. This is something I've asked other Mizoram players also. Like, what is the adjustment process, right? Like, because in Mizoram, right, you play a particular style, right? You are inspired by the NBA. It's all about the handles, the skills, and then you come and play in INBL. You play with players from Haryana, Punjab, Tamil Nadu, Gujarat, Kerala, right? So what was that experience like? Like, how, for a Mizoram player to come play, in some other part of India, right? Is it like a crazy adjustment, or are you able to adapt? So can you just take us through your INBL experience?
Oh, the experience is really great. Being able to play with the best players in India and being able to be around them. So it really helps me to grow. Not only as a player, also as a person. And like this team, I don't have problems with the adjustment and all because we all want to play basketball. We all have the same goal. We want to win. And like basketball is like a language. We just play together as a team. And like depending on talking about my play style, I just wanted to play. However the coach need me to play, and how my teammates want me to play. So I just can adjust if I have to take the ball and control the game. I just do that, and however the coach need me to be. So I just try my best, however I can. So that's how I play.
So what's your dream, man? Because see, again, for people who are tuning in, the Northeast rarely has players who end up playing on the Indian national team, right? From Mizoram itself, there have only
Yeah,
been two players who have ever played for India. Both of them have been the point guard position, right? Lalrina and Sanga. So is that something you dream about, like to play for India one day?
that's my main dream for now. Yeah.
Okay.
That's pretty cool. So, Tazwala, one last question. I don't know how comfortable you're talking about this, but I keep asking Gopal, look, man, in the end, it's an entertainment business. So, how much do players get paid to play in the Mizoram Super League if you're comfortable sharing?
It depends on the team.
Okay.
It depends on the team. So some players get like season wise.
Okay.
So my team we get a monthly salary,
Okay.
and you want to know the range or what?
And look, so, okay, fine. I'll probably ask you this question in private,
Off the record, off the record, off the record, bro.
off the
It
record.
it depends upon the team. So for
Okay.
my team, maybe around average 8,000 per month. I don't know. I don't know other players' salary.
Okay.
Hmm.
Okay. So, okay, perfect. So let's move on. Gopal, you have another question for Tazwala? Oh, yeah. I forgot to ask. So, of course, you follow the NBA. Did you see the planes today? And, whom do you think is winning it all this year?
Ivan was this morning's game. I have to watch.
Oh,
You
man.
I
you
was
don't know who
really
won? Do you know who won?
Do you
Tazola?
know?
I know Lakers, and Hawks.
Okay, perfect. So,
I love NBA. I watch a lot
who
of
do you think? Who
NBA.
do you think wins it all this year?
Um, I'll go with the Phoenix Suns,
Oh,
Ooh.
but
okay.
I don't think they'll win.
Uh, Interesting. So, why do you say that? Why do you say that? Because I also
They're
don't
like my
think.
best team, but in this first round, they're playing against the Clippers, right?
Yeah,
Clippers got a strong team. They all can play defense.
right.
And in the Suns, CP3 and Devin Booker, they're not that strong defense wise, right?
Yep, yep, yep,
So, and Kawhi will be able to guard Durant a little bit.
yep,
But Paul George is not there, right? Paul George,
right.
is he
Hmm.
playing?
No, Paul George is not playing. He's injured. He may join in the second
Oh,
round if they get there, second or third round, but he's injured.
but they still
If,
got Westbrook.
yeah, so I was gonna say this. I think Westbrook is gonna have a massive series because CP3 and Devin Booker can't stop him. He's gonna get to the rim whenever
Yeah,
he wants.
yeah.
So it'll
He's
be
gonna
very
post them
interesting to
up
see.
easily.
Yeah, 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 absolutely. And he's a very physical player, so he'll beat them up through the series. Let's see what happens.
Crazy.
So,
Crazy, 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 crazy.
Tazwallah, it was wonderful having you. Congratulations on the win. And
Yes.
Thanks for having me.
yeah, uh,
Awesome, awesome. Thanks, man. Thanks. Loved having you, Tazola. And good luck again for next season and whatever else you have planned, right? In the coming months.
Okay. All right. Thank
bye,
you so
bye,
much.
Tazwallah.
Bye.
Bye.
So, guys, that was Tazwala from the Mizoram Super League. You can check him out. You can check out his Instagram handles as well. Our next guest, Gopal, would you like to introduce him? We have our
Oh,
next guest also here.
awesome. Awesome. I love it. I love multiple guests, man. It's like, it just makes the conversation so much more interactive, right? So, yeah, so the next guest, as I was telling people in case you're just tuning in now, he is I'm calling him India's Jerry Maguire. I'm sure he's going to come on air and he's going to be like, no, bro. But hey, Jonathan. So, Jonathan Rego is India's first FIBA certified agent. And unfortunately, he's still one of India's very few FIBA certified agents. Probably only one of two. So, that's a bittersweet thing. We'll talk about that. But, Jonathan, welcome to the show, man. Welcome to Desi Ballers.
I just want to ask one question before I get started. Is the comparison to Jerry Maguire because of sport, or is it because I'm as good looking as Tom Cruise?
Oh, obviously, because you're as good looking, bro. Come on. It's all about the show me the money. we need money for basketball players, dude.
So,
Anyways, thanks,
Jonathan,
Gopal. Thanks for having me on. Yeah.
it's wonderful having you here. So, unlike Gopal, I am a complete noob of FIBA and Indian basketball and any of these things. I just follow the NBA. For me, NBA is basketball.
Hey,
So,
Jonathan loves NBA, by the way. Yeah? But I'm just telling you,
oh,
he's a
great. But can you educate me a little bit of what does a FIBA certified agent mean and like what are you doing on a typical basis? Like what should a amateur know about you?
Sure. Actually, I mean, to be clear, my day job is actually I work for a football club called Mumbai City FC. As Gopal is all too aware, and probably all those basketball fans are all too aware, basketball is a struggling artist's job in India. So we all got to eat food and we all got to put a roof over our head. So my day job is that I head corporate services for a football club called Mumbai City FC. But outside of my day job, I work with a lot of India's young basketball players, Shireen Limaye, Samson Sandhu, Sahej Sekhon. I also am connected to people like Tanmay Mali, who I believe you had on your show. I work with Gopal. We just brainstorm on a bunch of things. So, that's that. But to specifically answer your question about the FIBA agency, I don't exactly know when this happened, but probably say close to about a decade ago, FIBA decided what was happening was when there was a dispute between a player and a club, that either the player didn't show up for a game or the club didn't, say for example, pay a salary. Often players did not have recourse to from a legal standpoint of view, right? They would have to kind of rely on the local say law and order system. And
Right.
FIBA decided that I think it's just smarter to streamline this process and have what they call a basketball arbitrary tribunal. So it's just one tribunal that kind of addresses all of FIBA related basketball queries and basketball issues across the world. So if you have a dispute as a player or as a team, you can take it to this BAT and get it resolved at a global level. Of course, there are costs involved, but those are decided by FIBA, and there is some sort of subsidy that's involved as well. Now, why that context is important is that in order for any player or any club to be able to present their case in front of this basketball arbitrary BAT, they have to have a FIBA agent attached to a contract, right?
Okay.
So if there is no FIBA agent attached to the contract, there is a it's a 50-50 chance whether you get heard by the BAT or not. But if a FIBA
Okay.
agent is attached, the process is very straightforward. In fact, the agent has to do all the work where he or she ends up uploading these documents, putting the case in front, and you don't necessarily have to argue the case, as say for example lawyers do, but you definitely are presenting your case, because sometimes players are left in they are at the receiving end of slightly shrewd middlemen, or even teams that are trying to skip a line, or the other way in the other case as well, where teams are basically investing in this player and this player suddenly decides to vamoose, right? So I think both player and team are protected in this case, and you can take that contract to the BAT, and the BAT kind of puts it through a legal process and judges through. And if you want that contract to be seen by the BAT in a fair manner and to be prioritized, you need to have a FIBA agent attached to it. And I found out about this in 2014, in fact, and I was just as shocked as Gopal at that point of time to find out that there wasn't a single Indian on that. And I was under the impression it's going to cost a lot of money. It's probably going to take a lot of time. And all I found out was that FIBA has this massive rules and regulation book, out of which I think 3 or 4 chapters pertain to FIBA agency. If you pretty much learn those chapters, fly to Geneva, or I think it's Geneva, Singapore, Australia, and America. They do 4 exams every year, but they do annual exams. So then you fly to the place, you write the exam, and then you pass the exam and you pay the annual fee, and you're a FIBA agent. And if you're a lawyer, if you're a qualified lawyer in your country of if your country of origin, or your country of residence, you don't even need to take the exam. You just pay up the fee, you put the application, and you're off to the races. So I found
Okay.
it to be really simple, and that's basically the context of what a FIBA agent does.
Yeah, but Jonathan, I mean, you explained it very
So
well on why a FIBA agent is needed. Okay, but my first question is that why did you think of being an agent? Right, there are so many who could have done it. So did you think that did you have like what is your thought process like? Because we also know you wear a lot of different hats, right? So, but how did you decide that I can be a FIBA agent, or I should be a FIBA agent?
Well, somebody just gave me a packet with a lot of cash in it, so I said, okay, let me use it. No, I'm kidding. I was Gopal, Nikhil. I'm not going to try and brandish myself here, and I did it because I came from the same mindset that a lot of us working in Indian basketball come from, right? Which is, how can we help improve Indian basketball? At the point of time when I took up the exam as well, I had no clue what I was going to do with that agent's license. Zero. In fact, even till today, while I do understand there are players that we can kind of work with, and I found out in Australia, for example, if you're an Indian player and you're traveling to Australia and you're playing in the Australian league, you're not really counted as an import player. So you don't go against their quota of an import player, which is helpful for Australian teams, because then if they find an Indian talented player, they can bring him on or her onto their roster and don't have to set it off against their import quota, which they usually reserve for European players or American players. So these are things like that which I found out eventually. But at that time, I was like, India doesn't have a FIBA agent. Let me just become one and let me see what the process is. And to be clear, it's not at that point of time. It was a fair amount of investment. So the keeping up the license annually costs 1,000 Swiss francs. That's 90,000 rupees. In addition to the flying to Geneva, staying there for 2 nights, and doing the exam, which for me totally cost me, all in all, including the exam fee, cost me about 1.8 lakhs, right? And then that time 75,000, now 90,000 per year, on and on. When there is actually very little return for me, there are no
So
real. Sorry. So yeah. So that's why I decided to do it. Sorry, that's why I did it, not because I thought there was something valuable to it. I was like, okay, let me do it, and then we see what I can do for the Indian basketball community.
Okay, cool. So now you mentioned some numbers, and I mean, I'm a marketing guy and I'm a Marwadi, so all I think about is
Marwadi marketer, Jonathan.
all I think about
That's
is
what we needed in Indian basketball.
I'm telling
Just
that was my basic pitch to Nikhil. We need Marwadis in basketball. So whatever you do, I'm going to agree with it. So let's just do it.
so I'm very curious now. For me, what does an agent for a sports or athlete mean is he's gonna get me. So you spoke about the legal side of things. That's very interesting. But for me, what an agent or an athlete really for an athlete really means is he's gonna get me brand deals, he's gonna get me sponsorships, he's gonna get me into leagues, he's gonna get me into tournaments, and he's gonna try to market me. So that's my understanding. And then after that, whenever something successful happens, if I get a sponsorship for $100, I pay him a percentage of that, whatever the pre-agreed amount is. So for me, that's an agent. uh, Now of course you're a FIBA certified agent, so I'm guessing that apart from the code side of things, you have a little bit more credibility. But really explain to me the other business side of things, which I think is more important than the court side of things. So explain to me, like, do you represent any players? How has your journey been trying to find sponsors for them? How has your journey been trying to, well, market and promote this player and get him to a better place?
sure. So I'll answer your last part first, in the sense that I'm proud to say that the first athlete I signed on to manage was a female athlete. So I officially manage the commercial work for Shireen Limaye. Right now, it's only commercial work. We've not stepped into the. So when to be clear, there are two aspects. So I define it as commercial and professional. Professional relates to anything that Shireen or any of my athletes do on court. Commercial refers to anything that they do off court, in with brands, with brands. Let's just put it that way, right? So my first athlete I signed on to manage commercially was Shirin Lamaye. In addition to her, I also manage currently the only Indian origin, Indian passport holder to be playing professional basketball. So rather professional slash amateur basketball in the world is Samson Sandhu, and he's playing currently in Australia. And I also manage the commercial work for Sahej Sekon, who I believe at some point in time you all would probably have on the show as well. He's a 21-year-old, 22-year-old boy from Punjab who is phenomenal from that perspective. In addition to that, there are a couple of athletes that do reach out to me to kind of help them manage. Right now, I don't have the bandwidth, so whatever little I can do, I help them. Now, coming to the first part of your question, which is, what does an agent do per se outside of stuff that's on court? So one quick thing is that as per the FIBA contract, an agent is entitled to up to 10%. That is, the minimum can be anything, but the maximum of 10% of the contract value you sign between a player and a club. So that's for the stuff on court. Off court, they don't really have any, FIBA doesn't really step in. That's an understanding between you and the athlete, right? There is no standard in place. It can be as high as 25%, which I know, for example, some people do with other athletes, not so much in the basketball space, but at other athletes. In fact, a lot of brands reach out to me and say, middlemen reach out to me and said, we'll take 25% of the deal and we'll give the athlete 75%. So, and these are deals which cost 5,000 or 7,000 rupees. So, I don't understand what conscience you're doing this in. Anyways, so outside of that, my arrangement, and I'm happy to be transparent about it, lies anywhere between 10 to 15% of commercial deals that I bring in. For now, it revolves around cash deals. I have not started to take, because as you probably are aware, a lot of the basketball influencers are still a little lower on the priority for marketing brands in India. So they usually get a lot of barter deals, not so much cash deals. So for barter deals, I've kind of kept it off the contract right now because, it just didn't seem right to me and didn't stay right with my moral standpoint of view. But cash deals, I take, in some places I take 10%, in some places I take 15%, in some places I take 20%. That it kind of varies depending on my arrangement or my understanding of how much work I do for the athlete. And What that how that usually works is a lot of some of these athletes actually get inbound queries. So Shirin has been a leading basketball influencer. So she gets inbound queries. She passes them on to me, and then I kind of manage the query, and I kind of take it back to her with all the logistics and everything taken care of. Some queries come, I reach out to brands, so I'll shoot a message to them on Instagram, say, hey, this is what Shirin's profile looks like, or this is what Samson profile looks like, Sahej's profile looks like. Do you like this? Can we do something with you? And when we work it from there. So I don't know whether that answers your question, but that's very roughly what it entails.
So I want to go a little bit more in detail here. You gave me a rough understanding, so that's fine the way you structure your deals. But I want to go in a little bit more detail, as in, so you're representing a couple of players. What kind of opportunities have you been able to get for them? And if you're comfortable sharing, like how much has the player made? The reason I'm asking this question is I just want to understand all the different business avenues open to players through sponsorships or whatever it is. So just to understand, can you go into a little bit more detail of what's really possible or what deals you have been able to get?
Sure. So I'm not going to go into specific details about an athlete because that I don't think is fair to the athlete as well. Although
No, no.
I
So
know.
of course, not about the athlete. I meant as an example. Say
Sure,
you're doing,
sure,
yeah. So
correct. So
you
what I
can
can do is I
anonymize
can.
it. I just want to know the opportunities open to make money for an athlete.
Absolutely. So that's something I can discuss openly. But I think specific deals I won't go into details. But usually the opportunities that have come to our athletes is to be clear, is very public. If you actually go to Shirin's Instagram, or you go to Sahej's Instagram, or Samson's Instagram, or Tanmay was on your show, you go to Tanmay's Instagram. The deals that you see, the kind of brands that you see there are the deals that come. So you have brands like Fasten Up, you have a lot of nutrition brands. So nutrition brands like Fasten Up, Muscle Blaze, Knack, which is, I believe, an organic based protein company. You have yeah, I think these are the three big ones, for example. Then you have like On Nutrition, Optimum Nutrition, a bunch of other the brands that are these nutrition brands. There is Muscle Blaze. There's one more, in fact, that I can't remember. So Muscle Blaze, Fasten Up, and Knack are the three that come to my mind right now. Maybe something else pops up. That's one type of brand. Then, interestingly enough, you've got a lot of independent basketball brands that have started in India. Like, so for example, there is this one that is the name slips my mind, but they are a Delhi-based basketball T-shirt brand. Something Ballers, I can't remember, to be honest, and I can share that with you guys later for your show notes. But there's a brand based in the north of India. Very cool guys. They're two brothers. They just basically make really cool basketball T-shirts. I think they're called Ball Brothers. I think that's what it's called, Ball Brothers. And again, Shirin has one of those endorsements on her platform. There you have that. Then you obviously have sports brands. So as is publicly known, Shirin is a Puma athlete. And shout out to Puma, big time shout out to Puma. I think what is very fascinating is that Puma is, in my opinion, and I'm no bias here, this is purely just from a logical, rational, and experience standpoint of view. Puma is in India probably one of the more progressive thinking sports brands out there, right? What is really fascinating, and I don't think I'll get into trouble for sharing this, but Puma has a non-exclusive contract with a lot of its lower tier athletes, not so much the top tier athletes, but the lower tier athletes, the ones that they believe they should be investing in, either in cash or kind, as a way to help the sports community grow. I think Puma is damn progressive because they have non-exclusive deals. They do have some caveats saying, they do have some exceptions saying, okay, maybe 1 week before or 1 month before, or when this campaign launches, just make sure you don't release anything 15 days before or 15 days later. But outside that window, you want to go and engage with a Nike, or you want to go engage with Adidas or Converse or New Balance, or what you can say, Reliance Retail, please go ahead, do what it is. And for me, that's super encouraging, right? For a brand to not to be like so closed and say, no, let's hold on to everything, saying, hey, listen, man, we want to be part of your journey, we'd love to support you. This is, here's product and cash, but just when you post about us, just try and avoid posting something about our competitor probably a week or two after, and that's it. So for me, that's really progressive. So those kind of brands do come, sports brands, like Puma, for example. In addition to that, we are also kind of, I'm in advanced talks with a lot of facilities in India, right? So there are training facilities where, of course, I don't think there necessarily is going to be a cash exchange, but it's probably going to be some kind of mutual exchange. So there's the Akanksha Singh Basketball Academy in Bangalore, for instance, right? Where, I'm in conversation with Akanksha and Nitin, who's Akanksha's husband, who runs the academy as well, along with her, to understand how can we mutually benefit on having athletes come to your facility and train, and maybe get a subsidy in return for, maybe, for example, doing something on social media for you, right? Collaborative efforts, right? And that's something that we do as well. In addition to that, once in a while, like, there was a offer, for example, for all my athletes, for a benefactor to come in. This gentleman is, I won't take his name, but he's a fairly established Pune businessman. He's a little bit on the back end. Nobody really knows too much about him, but he has some investments in sport. And unfortunately, that didn't pan out the way we hoped it would. We did share a lot of information. It just didn't come back. Other than that, we also kind of work with small time digital media agencies, where they say, I tell them, hey, listen, man, you can go out in the market and say you represent this athlete, despite the fact that they are exclusively with me. And whatever you bring in, we'll keep the athletes part sacrosanct. And I can split what I'm making 50-50 with you, even 70-30. I'm happy to do that, right? Because you're bringing in the deal. I'm going to incentivize you for bringing in the deal, and you can take the lion's share of it and just keep something for me as well. So it's not as straightforward as a lot of people think, Dawson. So it depends on case. I hope
Okay.
that
No,
answers
no.
it.
Yeah, that does answer. And now we have some, obviously, Eklavya is a media company, right? We need our headlines. Okay, so let's go to some fun questions. We're going to put you in a spot. Okay, one thing which you mentioned, which I've never heard an agent mention, is the word conscience. Okay, so so my point to you is, right, like, you were the first FIBA certified agent in 2016 or 17, and even now you are probably still, like, probably the only active agent. So my question to you is, and so where are the other agents, right? So one is, do you worry about competition, or because it's a conflict of interest, right? On one hand, you want basketball to grow, at the same time all the other agents, they'll only come when there's money, right? So my question to you is, why why is the agency business like this, right? Where are the other agents, and why are more opportunity not being found? On a serious note, because we have players, like, whichever player comes, like Abhyuday Yadav came on our show, Tanmay Mali, all these guys, they say that, we are searching for agents, we don't have representation. So how do you answer this need for an agent versus the reality that there is no money to be made?
So that's actually a very, I'm going to try and condense that answer as much as possible, because it's a very deep answer. So the challenges, and I would love to sign, if there was a way for every Indian player to call me and sign up right now, I would just do it right away. Like, I have a standard contract ready. I have a lawyer on call. He'll just have to change the details, shoot it out to this player, sign it, send it to me tomorrow. And I'm not exaggerating on this. It's 5:24 right now. If you guys challenge me and say, Jonathan, can you sign 50 athletes by tomorrow, 24 hours? I will not do 50. I can do 100 athletes right now, right? And the reason why I can do that confidently is not because of anything else, because exactly what Gopal said. There is a need for that. Players want to be represented.
Jonathan, to interrupt you, you know what we're going to do, right? We're going to take out this short clip out of context and then put it out saying Jonathan is ready to sign 100 players. Go ahead.
Exactly. I'm somebody who's ran a media publication before. I 100% know I didn't say the words off the record here. So, you've got me. I'm wearing red, so you've got me red-handed, literally. But so I can sign anybody that I want to. So one thing I must give credit to is my first two bosses, right? This is Indranil Das Bla, who was head of sports for Global Sports, and then Kwan, and then after that, Mr. Kandarp Chandra, who's also currently my boss at Mumbai City FC. I got to give them credit because they always said, Jonathan, if you don't bring value to somebody, there is no point in engaging in a conversation with them. And tell them nicely, lay it down nicely, and tell them very transparently. This is something I've taken to heart, and I always do. So when, for example, in fact, I did have a conversation with Tanmay Mali about a year ago, and at that point of time, I sincerely did not feel like I could add any value to him. So what happens is, when an athlete, especially Indian athletes, when they sign with us, they think the same way that Nikhil thinks right now, which is, okay, I've signed an agent, I'm going to get contracts, I'm going to get endorsements. But the truth of the matter is, or the reality is, that's really, really hard, right? I am fighting tooth and nail with big brands to, there are brands that call me and say, can we get Shireen for a barter? I will send her a couple of t-shirts. And these are big brands I'm talking about. And I'm like, guys, are you going to treat Miss Harmanpreet Kaur the same way you treat Shirin Limaya? She's the captain of the Indian cricket team. Why are you going to treat the captain of the Indian national basketball team that way, right? And the same thing with a Sahej or a Samson. They treat these players very poorly because they expect them to do everything. So what happens is there's a gap now. Brands think we're going to get all these athletes for barters. We'll just throw them a couple of t-shirts, a couple of pairs of shoes, a couple of boxes of nutrition or supplement, and they're good. Athletes realize, no, well, I need 40 to 50,000 rupees to just stay an active athlete, right? It's not cheap to kind of keep your nutrition going. So both that gap is very, very hard to address right now because there is no way to address it, right? Brands don't understand this space. And the reason is brand don't understand is because they outsource all their marketing to agencies, and agencies just care about taking check boxes. Acha, okay, I found 6 athletes with 20,000 followers, so my job is done. No, like thinking about, okay, does this athlete fit my profile? Does this work with me? No, I got the numbers. So that's the gap that's there, and that's why, unfortunately, somebody like me, while I would love to sign all Indian players, I cannot. The other aspect is getting them contracts abroad. What happens is when an Indian player, what happens is internationally, while there might be a more talented Indian player, international teams tend to look for Westerners. This is just reality, right? They are looking for Europeans, they are looking for Americans, they are looking for even other top level Asian teams to kind of fill their quotas because those people bring what they call, what we in sports term, bums in seats. They put bums in seats. They bring people to the stadium, right? There might be an Indian player right now who's a much better team leader and a floor general than, let's say, an American import. But that American import can jump out of the gym and dunk with his right hand, with his left hand, probably holding his knee, scratching his head, and that's what's going to get more audience. So Indian players have still not reached that the mid, forget the top, the mid of priority lists, the middle of priority lists for international teams. And in that regard, as an agent, I cannot deliver that to them. If they are willing to sign with me and be patient about it, that's fine. I'm more than happy to take them on. But I also know that that's not the expectation a lot of them sign with me. With specifically with Shireen and Samson. Samson is a great example, right? Shireen, of course, I've had a relationship with her for a while, but we formalized a relationship only 2 years back. But for Samson, I've been working with Samson since 2014. It's 9 years now. So when I found him in 2014, we figured out a way to get him to Kochi, then to the US. And I've not made a dime of Samson right now. And it's taken 9 years. I still have not made a dime, but he also is not really yes, he's got into a professional contract in Australia, which, as I'd mentioned to you, is not he's getting paid to play professional basketball. They found a way to kind of compensate him. So it's been 9 years the boy's been playing basketball and he still doesn't have a professional contract. So can somebody stay with me for 9 years and get me to kind of guide them to find a way to build income? Like with Samson, we are, for example, thinking about, okay, how can we build his coaching income, for instance, right? How can he become a elite level pro trainer? Can we do that? That is something that requires a lot of patience and time, which I'm not saying this in a bad way. I'm just saying I understand it. Most players don't have that patience. They have pressure from home saying, why don't you just get a job now, right? You're a young boy, you're a young girl, get a job, get earning. This is for your own good. And parents are coming from a good space in a lot of ways. So, yeah, so that's the challenge. That's the reason I've not signed so many players yet.
No. So, and obviously, one of the things you mentioned in a casual conversational manner, but it's a very important point, right? The reason why leagues abroad they sign Europeans or Americans, and you mentioned bums in seats, right? So what that obviously translates to effectively is a brand, right? The personal brand that every player has, the ability to attract a crowd and audience. So this also is something that even Tanmay Mali mentioned, right? Is that the need to create your own personal brand. So how this waters down on a more practical level is, now, do you tell your athletes to post content every day to build a following. Now, what is your role in that aspect of it, and how are your athletes responding to that?
So that is 100. You've hit the nail on the head. So I've been encouraging all my athletes. So good thing with Shireen is, for example, she's a natural. She's naturally charismatic, right? Like the moment she walks into a room, she's magnetic. She pulls the audience to herself. So for her, I don't really need to kind of push, but occasionally I do need to remind her, like, okay, hey, you're posting good, some great lifestyle content, which makes her happy. Maybe it's time for like a piece of basketball content. I would say 9 out of 10 times I don't even need to make that phone call because she'll immediately come up with an idea and post it. But occasionally, between her brother, who's her guide and counselor, and myself, we do have to remind her. With Samson, extremely shy. With Sahej, extremely shy guys, right? If you could be in a room with just them and you wouldn't know that they exist there because there's just such reserved people. With them, I have to keep reminding them, post more content, create more content. And with the world today, for example, just recently I told Samson, ASMR videos are a big deal. I just checked on YouTube, there are no basketball ASMR videos. He put up an ASMR video a couple of days back. It's just him practicing with the sound on, that's it. So that's the kind of content I keep telling them to put out and to build their brand. Tanmay is a great example of brand building, by the way. I
Yeah.
think this boy, he's not like the Indian national captain. It's not like he's represented India in these countries. He just is relentless with his content game and he just goes after it day after day after day. Now, to find somebody like Tanmay who is internally motivated, helpful. To find somebody like Shireen who's internally motivated, helpful. To find somebody, to get somebody like Sahej and Samson who are not necessarily internally motivated. When they are on court, they are beasts. But off the court, they like to relax. That's their personality. But to remind them that, hey man, that personality is not going to get you paid. In order to get paid, you need to kind of build or create this persona is definitely challenging. And it's a part of my advice to them that if the more you do, the more I can. And I know, for example, with Sahej and Samson, we have increased both their followers. I think with Sahej, it's been about 30%. So he was at 3,000 when we started managing. He's at about 4,000 now. And with Samson, he was at about, I think, at about 400-500, and he's probably at about 800 or 900, maybe 1,000 followers right now. I haven't checked last. So definitely, it's something that we consciously kind of keep reminding them that they need to do.
Okay, so I think Nikhil has moved backstage, so I'm going to ask the question that I wanted him to ask, because this is the classic question that especially NBA fans in India have. And since you are an agent, we are making you morally and in all every way responsible. So the question is very straightforward: why is there no Indian national in the NBA? I'll give you three options. Okay, justifications. Is it a is it a talent issue? Is it a talent development issue? Or is it a lack of management issue?
I can't hear you, Gopal. I think you're breaking up. Gopal, you're break. Okay.
Okay, I got the answer.
Sorry, give me the three options again. I think that's definitely going to
is
help me.
it a talent issue? Is it a talent development issue? Or is it a lack of proper management issue?
I think I'm going to try to be a little cop out here, and I'll say it's a combination of the last two, right? It's not a talent issue, to be honest. I think with the NBA, it's very very clear that they. It's the reason why I still believe Satnam got signed. Was Satnam the most was Satnam the 55th most talented player in that draft? No, he was not. He was not ready for the NBA at that time. And that the obvious part of that is that the Mavs signed him and then put him into the D League immediately. He was not ready for the league, but they did sign him, and we had a big shusha about it. A good guy, great guy, happy for his success, but that was not the reason he got signed. Talent was not the reason he got signed. So I think there is enough of talent in India which can be honed and molded to get into the NBA. At least get a 12th man seat in the NBA. I genuinely believe this. Where the mistake lies is the development part of it. Right now, what happens is after 14, 15, when okay, let's say you've had the opportunity to kind of play, you played from 8 or 9. From 14, 15, that's where we drop off significantly, right? That ability, because at that point of time, inches matter, degrees matter, seconds matter. And that kind of mentality is not driven into our Indian players, right? That the development is not so much about how can I get stronger or how can I do a layup better, how can I dunk better, how can I jump higher. It's more about what is that 1% more I'm doing every single day to be able to compete with, African American players in the US or European players from Europe, right? That is something, that edge is something that very, very few Indian players possess, right? With Samson, for example, because of his nature, the guy is gifted. I mean, you've seen him on court. If he was maybe 3-4 inches taller and he had fire in him, I'm not saying this because I manage him. I'm telling you with no bias, he would have been a Division 1 player, right? Because he's that gifted. Now, why is he not a Division 1 player? Yes, it could be part because of the way his journey part out, but also because that fire, that edge, only started to get developed in him when he was 19 or 20, when he went to the US, when he started to play with players who were in that US system. And I'm not, this has got nothing to do with race, right? He played with all sorts of races there. I'm saying the system, the ecosystem. He started to play in an ecosystem where, man, those guys were battling him, not fighting. They were battling him for like an inch of the court, a second cut. That kind of stuff is not something you can teach. You can only develop that by having much more evolved high level competition. So, from a development standpoint of view, I'm being very clear here, and I'm not being hyperbolic here. We have all the infrastructure and the talent and the know how to develop an NBA player in India right now. We have the SNC coaches, we have physiotherapists, we have psychologists, we have everything. Everything we have in India. We have great infrastructure also. The question is, how much are we developing from our players the ability to beat somebody or fight somebody for that 1% more, that 1 second more, that 1 inch more, that 1 degree more? That is lacking. And then, yes, management for sure, like trying to get these people to, say, for example, organize a group of players and let's say send them to the G League. Whether they make it or not is a different conversation, but can we get 5 Indian players to travel to the G League and try out? I can't expect the Indian players to pay for it because unfortunately they don't make any money. It's going to cost us probably 5 to 10 lakhs, maybe 15 lakhs to get those players there to try out. And when I say try out, not just go for the tryouts, but also probably spend some time in a coaching academy and train for 2-3 weeks or 4 weeks. Like for example, Palpreet went to John Lucas and trained for a month there. So train for 2 to 3 weeks, get acclimatized to that intensity, and then go for the G League tryout. It's going to cost us 15, 16, maybe 20 lakhs. It's a lot of money. The players cannot afford it. Who else can? So it's a combination of number two and number three.
Okay, so again, now my job is to summarize what you just said. Okay, so I'm going to put you in a spot. So you're saying there's going to be an Indian in the NBA. It's a question of when and not if, right? That's all.
100%.
And
100%.
and when it comes to the when, we are looking at what, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, 20 years plus.
If we are going at the current pace that we are going and the current pace that we're growing, I would say 8 to 10 years. I think we can get there in 5, but realistically 8 to 10 years. For the simple reason that, again, I think, say, the top of the talent stack right now, if you consider everything else, is pretty much the NBA academy in India, right? And the NBA academy is only till 18. After 18, the players pretty much have to take care of themselves. So if there are US colleges looking towards the NBA academy and saying, okay, can I take one of these NBA academy students onto my roster and work from there, that's definitely helpful. But realistically, 8 to 10 years can be done in 5 years if we really amp up our efforts right now.
Okay, let me modify my question. What about an Indian in the WNBA? Is that the same timeline or is it even longer?
I would say that it's the lower end is pretty much the same, 4 to 5 years, right? Because you're talking about developing a young girl, and there's a lot of other stuff that comes with development of women players in India, right? It's that to break that mindset, sometimes to allow to get them to leave their homes, to earn the trust of the parents. It's not an easy job. So I would say the timeline for the lower end is roughly the same, 4 to 5 years. On the higher end, probably a year or two less, because they develop much faster. Because the moment you give them an opportunity and they have a buy-in from their support system, the girls skyrocket, man. And also the competition is very different at the girls level. So yeah. I think
Okay.
lower in 5 years, higher in maybe 7 to 8 years. For
Yeah.
boys, it's probably 8 to 10 years.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned competition is different and competition not less. I think this is an important message that has to be sent out, because again we know the perception around women's sport is considered, less intense, but that's obviously not true. And the last question though, and yeah, coming again to this to the point that you made, I think we are seeing a lot of these young players these days who have their fearlessness, right, in the way they play, in the way they approach things. So hopefully this will happen, right? The way even the Indian athletes play, they play with that edge that you're talking about, that perhaps has been missing in the last few years. And the last question, we know you're a hardcore NBA fan, right? And I don't know if you had a chance to watch the playing games this morning. What are your thoughts about this morning's game, and also what are your classic predictions for this season? Who's going to win?
Uh, I thought the Lakers were really, really, really lucky today, right?
Oh, lucky. Oh,
I think
okay.
I think they were really lucky today. I think you got to give credit, and the reason I say lucky is because this should not even have been a competition from the start. Minnesota didn't have two of their, let's say, 5 or 6 top players, and the Lakers should have run over them. The Lakers finished the season with such momentum and such pace that they should have destroyed them. This should have been a game that was over by the third quarter. But Minnesota came out guns blazing. I've been a critic of Cat before, Carl Anthony Towns, but I have to admit that he really stepped it up today. I wished Anthony Edwards would have done a better job today, but it's fine. He's young. They've got the next play-in game to go. But it's going to be interesting. I think the Lakers were lucky to have saved themselves out of this, especially considering that their talent have they on their roster. But I think going up against the Grizzlies is going to be interesting for them. The Grizzlies are, let us say, like they have, 8 to 10 dogs in the fight. Like they just come at you. They have a chip on their shoulder. They're just looking for blood. They don't. They're pretty much going to destroy everybody until they get to the Warriors, which is what they eventually want, right? If they get to the Warriors, that is. With regards to the East, I'm a little disappointed with the bottom half of the. I think the top four are pretty sorted, whether it's your Milwaukee, Boston, Philly, but the rest of the crowd, they haven't really impressed me this season, just in terms of their ability to win in a 7-game series, which is what the playoffs are.
Yeah.
Uh, Very little can be done to convince me that the Milwaukee is not going to win the championship. Sorry. Yeah, very little can be done to convince me that Milwaukee is not. I think Milwaukee, my money's on Milwaukee. I think this is going to be Giannis' second conversation, and then we have to sit and have a very serious conversation about how Giannis has not left his first team, won 2 championships, been an MVP twice, and then question is then what more does he need to get into the top 10 goat conversation?
No, this is
And I think
amazing. Yeah, yeah. No, I think that's a safe bet, safe prediction that you have made. And also, Jonathan, I mean, couple of things that you said, which on this note we'll probably end. And I hope other agents who are seeing loyalty and conscience, right? I think these are. I think that's amazing. Thank you, Jonathan. Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah.
before you finish, loyalty and conscience also. Well, addition, obviously, I give all credit to Indranil and Kadar and my parents for kind of bringing me up that way. But Jerry Maguire, the first person you mentioned, I should tell this to everybody, and thank you for giving me this opportunity to say this on the show. A lot of people don't know this still. Jerry Maguire, he wrote a mission statement in the movie. It was based on that mission statement that he got fired.
Yeah.
FYI, guys who are watching this show, there is actually a mission statement. It's not some document that they printed and put in files and they showed in the movie. There's actually a mission statement. And I read that mission statement anywhere between 3 to 4 times a year. I have a copy that is so torn, so worn out. But I read that mission statement. It's 8 pages long. And if you ever intend to work in sport, especially as an agent, read that. It is by far the best literature in sports agency and sports in general that I have ever read, and I recommend to everybody to read it. So that's where also my loyalty and conscience comes from.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you so much for joining us, and I hope we can have you again as the playoffs, start. And yeah, good luck to you and good luck to all your players. And to everyone tuning, we'll be back again on Friday, and we'll be talking for like full-on playoffs, right? So we may not even have a guest. So Jonathan, you are our last guest for a while. So thank you for joining and for your time on a weekday.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you,
Thank
Gopal.
you.
Thank you,
Bye bye.
Nikhil.
Thank you.